Okay, so this is a short video on how to factor slightly more difficult trinomials, and the reason we refer to these as more difficult trinomials is because of the presence of a number here in front of the x squared term. Anytime there's something more than just one here, it makes it a little bit more challenging to factor, but we can handle it, no big deal. We'll set up our sets of parentheses like normal, and your first task is to think about this first term. What multiplies to make this, or what are the factors of it? So the only thing that multiplies to make 5 is 5 and 1, and so we put 5x and x, and those are going to be what we put in the parentheses, like so. Now, if you have much exposure to setting up quadratic trinomials when you're factoring them, you probably know that when you see this sign in the back, that tells you that there's going to be one plus sign and one minus sign that go in the parentheses. We don't know, however, where they go because these two are not the same. 5x and x aren't the same, so we can't just put them wherever we want. We're going to have to wait on that. But we can tell that because this is a subtraction sign, that we're going to have to subtract when we try and get our 17 here in a minute. So that's going to come into play in a minute. You'll see how that works out. So the next task after you set that up and think about what the signs are going to be is you're going to take your 12 over here, this value, you're going to try and decide what factors are there of 12. So the factors of 12 are 12 and 1, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. And you can get those just by trying to divide numbers into 12. So what I want to do now is I want to try putting these values into the parentheses here. The trick is that we can try them and we get to flip their order. We aren't sure which order they're going to go in because the parentheses are different, so we got to kind of try several different times until we get the one that works out. So what we're going to do is try a value. We're going to try 2 and 6, and the way that we know whether or not that is correct or not is by looking at the outer and the inner. Remember, when you FOIL something back out, the outer and the inner are the two things that combine to give you this middle term here, which is what we're trying to look at. So I want to look at the outer and the inner, and as I said, I'm going to have to decide if they subtract to give me 17. So when I multiply 2 times x, I get 2x. When I multiply 5x times 6, I get 30x. Now when I subtract those values, 30 minus 2, I get 28. So I don't get 17. That tells me that these two do not work, and we're going to have to try something else. So what I'm going to do is try and just switch the two. We're going to still try 2 and 6, except this time we're going to switch it to 6 and 2, like so. And so now I again try this again. 6 times x is 6x, and 5 times 2 is 10x, and when I subtract, I do not get 17x, I get 4x. So again, that tells me these do not work. These are not the proper factors. So I've tried 2 and 6. I've tried 6 and 2. That is not going to work. So I always tell my students the least likely to be is the 1 in whatever number generally. So I do that last. So let's try 3 and 4. So put 3 and 4, multiply 3x, and multiply 5x times 4 is 20x. Now when I subtract 20x minus 3x, I get 17x. So that's what we're looking for. Now the last thing is, all we got to do is figure out which set of signs to put in. How do I know what the signs are? So the bigger of these two values that you got always takes this middle sign right here. So since 20 is bigger than 3, that means it has to be the subtraction sign, it has to be the negative sign. And so that goes over here. The 20 is made of the 5 and the 4, so the 20 has to be the subtraction, and the 3 has to be the addition. And so that is how we can factor a little bit more difficult trinomial like this one right here. And you can always, of course, check this by FOILing it back out, and you're going to get this trinomial back, which tells us that we did it properly. So there is your answer. Hope it helps.